Welcome everyone to another episode of Talking Heads, with me, Keith Smith. Please remember, as with all my Talking Heads videos, these are my opinions. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. On the contrary, I expect many people will disagree with my views, and that's great. The way we change and evolve our society is through discussion, argument, and a healthy exchange of opinions. So all I ask is, whether you agree or disagree, don't forget to click like, and if you feel moved to, please leave a comment below. So, physician-assisted suicide. Most people have an opinion. Unfortunately, many people base their opinion on the tenets of the Bible, which is fine for their decision-making process, for decisions that affect them, and only them. But is it right that these people, who have such strong religious opinions, should be able to restrict the choices and influence the lives of other, non-religious individuals in such a devastating way, by forcing them to endure, sometimes years, of intolerable pain, just so the religious groups can pretend to be looking out for the soul of the community? Not everyone believes that taking your own life is a mortal sin. Not everyone believes that, if you take your own life, your eternal soul will burn in hell for eternity. But surely, even if they do, we live in a free society. Ergo, we should be free to make this kind of decision for ourselves. Hands up if you have heard of dignitas. Keep them up if you know what dignitas does. But did you know that, in Switzerland, just as here in the United Kingdom, it is against the law for a doctor to inject you, or give you tablets that will kill you? The only difference between the law here and in Switzerland is that if you're a member of Dignitas, a physician can legally prepare an injection, a drink, or present you with tablets, and as long as you push the plunger or drink the concoction yourself, no one will get investigated or charged with an offense. But you have to be a member, and you have to sign all the forms. So, just in case you missed it, not only do you have to be well enough to push the plunger or drink the concoction yourself, you must be fit and strong enough to travel to Switzerland in the first place. Now for those that cannot see the elephant in the room, if you're still healthy enough to do those things, you should be at home enjoying what time you have left, not paying a fortune to travel to another country, to die so much earlier than you need to. So why do we have such a problem with allowing people to ask a qualified and competent physician to help them bring an end to their lives, at a time of their choosing, not at a time dictated by their ability to do it themselves? Well, there are lots of reasons. Aside from the religious objections, some are legitimate concerns, whereas some are just utter poppycock, invented by people who just want to impose their will on people who they have never met, and have no idea what their lives are like. As the saying goes, don't judge me until you have walked a mile in my shoes. I'm not going to go into the religious objections. I think you all know what I think about people who feel justified in imposing their religious views on the rest of society. Nor am I going to touch on the more ludicrous objections that have no place in a modern society. I am going to try and address some of the extremely justified concerns, but from the devil's advocate position. I will preface this by saying, I believe we should have a physician-assisted suicide law, and we can come up with a safe way to accomplish this if we put our heads together and leave our egos at the door. I would also say at this point, I would not opt to use physician-assisted suicide. I am far too narcissistic and nosy to depart this life before I absolutely have to. I will be fighting tooth and nail, with every ounce of strength I have, to stay around until a cure for motor neurone disease comes along. But that doesn't mean others who do want to make use of physician-assisted suicide shouldn't be allowed to. Okay, I also have to say, as those who know me, or regular viewers of my Talking Heads videos will know, I have a solution, but then I always do, as my plan looks to deal with the primary concerns of people who object to physician-assisted suicide. It's probably a good idea if I list the ones I come across most of the time, up front. That way we can have a clear understanding of why I make reference in my plan to things like coercion and compos mentis. So we shouldn't have a physician-assisted suicide law because There is a risk that families may coerce a vulnerable, sick or elderly family member into taking this option to get their hands on the inheritance early. The elderly in particular often say things like, "I don't want to be a burden to my family." And that should never be a reason to commit suicide. "I can't live alone anymore and the social worker says I have to go into a home, but because I own my home, the social worker says I will have to sell it to pay for my care. If I do that, I won't have anything to pass on to my family. Maybe it would be better if I just wasn't here." Unfortunately, being chronically sick often goes hand in hand with being poor, and many people say that they cannot afford to stay alive because they are a financial drain on their families. People who have a chronic condition may just be having a bad day or are depressed and elect to commit suicide, when on a good day they wouldn't even consider it. People with mental health issues may choose physician-assisted suicide without really understanding that it's permanent. You don't get to reset. Yes, I understand Buddhism and the concept of reincarnation, not the same. And my favorite, only because it shows just how divisive some people can be. So we shouldn't have a physician-assisted suicide law because we, the great and washed, should not have that much control over our lives because we aren't clever enough to make the right decision. And finally, I know I said I wouldn't include this one, but the devil made me do it, so we shouldn't have a physician-assisted suicide law because only God can decide when you die.
It's you.
Doctors think they're God, but they're not. Okay. So those are the most common arguments I come across for not allowing a physician-assisted suicide law in the UK. There are others, but from what I have seen, they are variations on one of these themes. But if you know different, or have another reason for not having a physician-assisted suicide law in the UK, please do leave a comment below and I will endeavour to address it. So, my magic solution is, well, on the face of it, none of these issues would seem to have a simple, robust, but workable solution that could address the exact concerns of those who have raised them, but there is. Now it may initially sound complicated and expensive, but stick with me and it will all make sense in the end. What we put in place is a 3-person panel, containing a specialist psychiatrist, a specialist physician and a specialist advocate. Or to be accurate, several of them, one for each county. The panel's psychiatrist specializes in establishing compos mentis and recognizes the signs of coercion, guilt and mental illness. This psychiatrist has one job, to make sure that the patient is making this decision, absent of any influence from family, friends, insurance companies, solicitors, family advisors, and definitely not from the prevalence of TV adverts insisting that they are a burden in their old age. They address the financial circumstances of the patient to establish if this is an influencer, likewise that there are no mental health issues, depression or even influence in the form of benefit withdrawal and tenancy termination from government bodies. If the patient passes this part of the interview, an appointment is made for them to see the second member of the panel, the physician. This panel member is a physician who specializes in assisted suicide, both explaining the various options and processes in layman terms and advising on alternative options to physician-assisted suicide, to ensure that the decision is a fully informed one. For example, some patients are completely unaware of new treatments and therapies coming through late-stage patient trials or treatments that are already available, but that haven't been offered to the patient or explained properly. Sometimes, a little hope is all that's needed to shine a different light on the problem. Having established that the patient is adamant that they want to go through with the physician-assisted suicide process, the physician then sets a new third appointment with an advocate and themselves. During this meeting, the only subjects discussed are the final method of death, what will trigger the process, and just as importantly, what, if any, signs or signals are to be put in place to either trigger or cancel the process. The point here is, this discussion is happening now, when the patient can make it clear what they want, and more importantly, when they want it to be done. The methods will cover every available form of termination, from injection through to tablets and liquid. The point is to establish exactly how, in detail, you want this done. The advocate is there to record and witness the process of establishing the final choice, and to draw it up into an affidavit to put in front of a judge. The judge reviews the application, and if all the paperwork is in order, an uncontestable court order is issued by the judge. The advocate then enters the order on the database, and that's it. The patient can instruct anyone from a doctor to a family member to assist them to commit suicide. Everyone involved knows exactly what the person wants, when it's to be done, by whom, and most importantly, that there is absolutely no risk of the authorities investigating or prosecuting anyone involved. So how does this proposed solution help the patient accomplish their goal of getting a physician to help them commit suicide legally? Well, this entire process can take place months, or even years, before you actually need to take the final step of instructing a doctor to assist you in committing suicide. Take, as an example, someone with remitting and relapsing MS. They may not even be experiencing severe symptoms when they put their physician-assisted suicide order in place. It may be 20 years before they get so disabled, and are in so much pain, that their conditional trigger is activated. The point being, the how, who, when and where are already sorted. Just enjoy your life. This means you can just get on with enjoying the rest of your life, happy in the knowledge that when the time comes, you can wait until the absolute end before giving the instruction to the doctor, or whoever you have nominated as the person legally allowed to aid your suicide. So, what purpose does this court order serve? Well, the best way to understand that is to look at what happens now. If anyone, a doctor, a relative, or a complete stranger, helps someone to commit suicide, that could be as simple as actually buying the medication, or in a recent case, if your credit card is used to purchase the flights to Switzerland. The police always investigate, and the public prosecutor will always prosecute if they find enough evidence to. But for a doctor, the stakes are even higher. Even a hint of involvement in something like this will likely result in them being struck off. So, to answer the question, what's the point of the court order? Well, if we implement this plan, then court-approved physician-assisted suicide becomes legal. Any doctor or licensed individual, or even family member, if that is the method and person detailed in the court order, can now legally assist any patient to end their own life, without fear of the ramifications. I hear the comments already, if it's legal, why do we need advocates and judges, and isn't this going to cost a fortune? And this is where I said, stick with me till the end, it will all come together. I will answer this fully at the end, but just to keep your minds focused, from the patient's perspective, it's completely free, zero cost, fully funded. We start with a system that completely removes the family, friends, and legal representatives from any involvement in the process. There is only one person going to die, nobody else, not family, not friends, and definitely not a legal advisor. None of them should be in a position to influence the words that the applicant uses during the interview. But in this litigious and vindictive society, there is not just the possibility that someone will try and take legal action to challenge the patient's decision. It's almost inevitable. So, by getting the whole process witnessed by a court officer and signed off by a judge, we eliminate the possibility of any outside individual or organization trying to influence or change the decision of the patient. Okay, so I know there will be plenty of people picking holes in this plan already, which is great. If you can take a moment to put your observations in the comments below. If I have considered it and have an answer, I will update. If I haven't thought of it, I will. And if I have an answer, again, I will produce an update. So thanks in advance for all the views, likes, but especially your comments. So, did you think I forgot about the costs? Where is all this money coming from to pay for all these professionals? Okay, well, let me first mention this. The cost of investigating assisted suicide in the UK runs into millions of pounds a year. So although it's not a practical funding solution, it will reduce, by a significant amount, this cost to the public purse. Also, remember that the panel members are all employed professionals, working in the same places for the same organizations as they would be now. The services they provide to the physician-assisted suicide program are much the same as they do when doing private work, charged at a pre-agreed hourly rate. No retainers, no outdated limited hours contracts, just a simple hourly rate. Also, remember that there aren't many of these cases a year, maybe 500, although once it becomes legal, I would anticipate something of a surge initially, but it should settle back to under 500 a year. So here is my proposal for funding this plan. Stand by for fireworks. A direct, ring-fenced tax on Amazon, Vodafone and Starbucks and the pharmaceutical companies that provide medication to the NHS at inflated rates. Don't like that solution. Legalize marijuana and put the surplus directly into research of terminal and chronic conditions. Even at a basic tax rate, it's estimated that the tax revenue would be around £100 million. And that's another thing. Cannabinoids should be used as symptom relief, not as an excuse to give someone a criminal record. Don't get me started on this one, too late. I feel another video coming on. Anyway, let's get this one done first. So, that's the big question. If you have anything to say, you know what to do. If you don't like my conclusions, leave a comment and tell me why. If you have any ideas about how we can progress this issue, please do leave your comments below, and if you like this video, please click like. If you don't like this video, click like anyway. Just do it ironically. And don't forget to subscribe to keep up with Keith. Thanks for watching guys, and please find time to watch some of my other videos.